All right, here we go. We're running a little bit late, but better late than never, I hope. We're going to do the review and critique for your projects that were turned in on time for the best shot project. We're going to do this in two parts, and this will be part number one. And when we finish, we'll get on to part number two. So let's just leap right ahead here and get on to our critique. We have a really interesting waterfall shot here. Really nice architectural element. We've done a really nice job with the motion of the water. Everything is quite nice with this. The only issue is that there is so much background data, and it's all crisp and sharp, that it starts to take away from the real shot. I think the real shot is in here, right in this area. And this tile work that forms the fountain, or the little waterfall. This stuff back in here is just interesting, but it's in the way. If this were an architectural shot, what I would expect you to do is to open up the lens so that you had less depth of field. And this may have to be here for composition, but it would be more out of focus. So you're really concentrating on this. So what I would do in this case, since that's hard to do retroactively, is I would eliminate as much of it as possible from our view. Some of this we don't need. The way the fountain is laid out, much of it is redundant in a way. We don't need all of this foreground to establish that. So we could get in a little bit tighter, and then we might want to see what we could do to fog that out. That would put us into some serious editing, stuff that may be a little beyond where we are now. But I want to show it to you so you'll understand what can be done. I would make a duplicate layer of this. And I did that by dragging the top layer down to this new layer icon. Now, when you have layers, you've got two things to look for. Over here, you've got the little eyeball. Whatever eyeball layer is on top is the one you're looking at. This eyeball is on, but you're not looking at it. You're looking at the one that's on top. We've got a highlighted layer on top now. If I click here, the bottom layer is highlighted. Whichever layer is highlighted is the layer you're working on. The top, we're now looking at this top layer, but if we do anything, we're going to be working on the bottom one. Well, I want to work on the bottom one, but I want to see it, so I'm going to take the eyeball off of this top one. And now we're going to be both looking at and working on this bottom layer. And what I'm going to do is just blur it. If I were doing this for real, I would probably use a lens blur. It looks a little more like an out of focus blur, but it's slower. So for right now, I'm just going to use the Gaussian blur, and that's going to help us move along faster. Do a little bit more. There we go. Now, of course, that blurred the entire layer. But if I go back to the top layer, put the eyeball on it, we can see it's still sharp. So what I'm going to do now is do a layer mask. And I'm going to click on this layer mask icon. Why? Looks like nothing changed. That's because nothing did change. But now what will happen? I've got this white layer mask. If I go to my brush and I use a black brush, And I am going to zoom in on this so I can see it a little better. Now, if I take my brush down a bit, let's take a little more so we can do this faster. I normally would try very hard to build up to this. Now, you notice I'm spilling that blur over onto the block, to the stuff I want to keep. Not worried about that at the moment. I'll show you why. And which will also be one of the reasons I'm using a layer mask, not an eraser tool, which I could also use. If I go now and switch brush colors, I can go back, I need a small brush to do this, and paint back the areas that were overlapped. So I can now bring that sharpness back to the edges of this. And with a little bit of effort, we can go in and clean this up really pretty nicely. And now if we zoom back out and look at it, you can see what's happened is that background is no longer seriously competing with that cool foreground fountain. It's there still. This would be much better done in the shooting with a narrow depth of field than it is trying to do it in post-production. But we can accomplish a bunch in post. So let's go on to the next one. Here we have a nice little tableau of the plant on the table. The little dropped leaf down here really is a very nice touch. That's very cool. I think this is a lovely shot. The only thing I would do is come in a little bit tighter on it because we've got so much dead space in the foreground here on the table, in the walls. I don't want to make it too tight, but I want to come in a little bit. Just enough to where we can really concentrate on the primary subject, which is the flower on the table. Maybe I'll come in a little on this side. And now we're going to concentrate on that flower a little bit better. I think this is a really nice start. Very pretty shot, nice pastoral. A still life. The lighting is perfect with the almost natural vignette of the light on the back wall. Very nicely done. Nice. Okay, let's go on. Well, we have the cat who knows who rules his roost. And again, the only issue I would really deal with here is concentrating on the cat. Anytime you have all of this stuff in the background, whether it's semi-sharp as it is here, it's out of focus a little bit, but it's going to distract from the shot, and your shot is here. This is what this shot is all about. So move in on it. The more you can do that in the camera, the better off you're going to be. So if we can move right in. We've still got background, but now it's reduced to pure background, and we can concentrate on the cat much better. What I might do is vignette this a little bit to help you really look at the cat more. Let's do that just so you can see what it's like. I'm going to make a duplicate layer. I'm going to go onto this top layer, and I'm going to go up here where it says normal. This is the blending style. for layers. I'm going to make that a multiply layer. And you can see it made it darker by about a stop, actually. Now what I'm going to do is again do a layer mask, but this time I'm going to do a reverse mask. And I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option key while I click on this. This takes me back to the original. But now if you'll notice, I've got a black mask icon, not a white one. So if I go in with my white brush, and I'll make it nice and big and soft, I can bring down a lot of this. And help you concentrate even more on the cat. Okay? So now we've really pushed the idea that the shot's about the cat, not about the cluttered room that's all around it. Simple correction. Easy to do. But it's going to help enormously on this. Okay? Let's go on. Here we have an interesting shot of a person in a gondola, I assume, going over a fair or a park of some kind and looking out over the landscape that's down below. It's an interesting shot, nice location shot. Once again, what's the subject of this shot? Whenever you're taking a picture, ask yourself, what is the subject of this? What's the real thing? Well, I'm going to assume it's him. And the fact that he's in a gondola of some kind is fascinating, but it's really a picture of him on location. So let's get rid of some of the distracting stuff. First of all, we'll keep it as a landscape shot. Now we've pushed a little more into him. But I would like to lighten the shadow areas of his body and the camera. And so I'm going to do something that is almost exactly opposite of what we did with the vignette. First of all, I'm going to make a duplicate layer. And by the way, I'm doing this by dragging this down to the icon. You can do the same thing simply by hitting Control or Command J on your keyboard, and it will accomplish the same thing. Now we'll go up to Layer Styles, and instead of Multiply, which we did the last time, I'm going to go to Screen, which is going to lighten this whole area up. And once again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make an inverted layer mask by holding down the Alt key. I now have my black layer mask. We'll go to my brush. And by brushing over the area I wish to lighten, I can put a lot more detail on my guy. So again, a very simple way to do burning and dodging without messing with the color, and in a manner that lets us easily go back and change it if we don't like what we just accomplished. But this works fairly well. Okay, let's go on. And later, when we get into some more serious editing, we'll talk about how we could put a sky in here if we wanted. But that'll come a little later. Ah, we have a space alien. Wow, that's pretty cool. Holy Moses. And this guy in the background is astonished at what he's seeing. He's debating whether to call the police or call the newspaper to say he spotted an alien here, complete with space helmet and everything. This is a fun shot. Very, very nice shot. The only thing I would do is slightly vignette it so we really make this the standout part. I think the composition works. All of this works pretty well. So let's go back to what we did before. We'll make a multiply layer and a layer mask. And now, this time, instead of painting the darker area around the edges, I'm just going to lighten the area that I want for my vignette. I'm going to turn the opacity down, way down, make a very big soft brush. And now you can see over here what we've done. We've really made our little space alien dancer and her wonderful bubble here really stand out better. Okay, very subtle. If we wanted to enhance this even more, whenever we make a duplicate layer, you duplicate everything about that layer as it is at that moment. So if I duplicate this, I'm also duplicating the mask. So I'll come down. I can enhance that even more. I'll cut the opacity down because we went just a little too far. But now we can really add some depth to it and emphasize the part of it that we want. Oh, what a nice shot of the harbor. Boy, the palette's strong in this. All blues, a little bit of contrasting color to catch your eye, and the flags on it. Very nice. I think I would do little more than, again, maybe slightly vignette this to add some depth to it. But by and large, keep it very close to what it is now. I think this is a very nice shot. I'm not sure we're going to be doing much to it, but we'll try. It's always fun to play with somebody else's stuff. Oh, well, you know what? Before I try to do a vignette, maybe we can add something just by adding a little bit of, here is our original. Maybe if we just saturate that a little bit with a slight underexposure, we can make it stand out a little better. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll do the vignette. I'm going to flatten it. Do this one more time. And now I'm going to again lighten this area that I want to keep. And we've added some depth and basically added a little bit of color saturation to it without touching any of the other things. Question sometimes comes up when I'll do this. Why didn't I just burn and dodge this? And the reason is, using the burning and dodging tools over here on the toolbar have a tendency to really mess up color. It just makes for some ugly color. It works beautifully if you're doing a grayscale image, which we'll do a little later in the class. But for color images where you want to maintain color, there are much better ways to affect that burning and dodging than by using those tools. And this is one of them. Over the course of this, you'll see us use several. But we'll see how this one works for now. I think it works pretty well. So we'll go on. Oh, this is a fun portrait of the party girls having some kind of fun going on here. Very nice. But again, you've got a lot of background here that barely relates to what's going on. Where's your subject? It's here. It's in these two faces having fun at the party. If I were going to leave all of the rest of this, I would darken it, but I don't think I need it all. I might want to keep some of it so that I can keep a sense of the party. I want to see some sense of those balloons, maybe. We don't need to see all of them to know that they're balloons. We don't need to see endless repetitions of this background. We can still get a sense of what that is with a little less lost material. And then I would probably darken some of this. I'd mentioned what the burning and dodging tools do to these colors. I'm going to do this one that way just so you can see it. I would normally do what I did with the others, but for right now, let's use the burn tool. I'm going to be working on the midtones and highlights really, but midtones will do. I'm going to take it up a notch so we can see the action much faster. Use a large brush. If we're really subtle with this, it might work okay. Now what I would do, because I've spilled a little onto their faces, is I can either go back over here and now pick the dodge tool, or I could simply hold down the Alt key and that would do it, but I'm going to lighten their face back up a little. So we've made them stand out a little bit better. What you can start to see though is we're starting to discolor this background wall. It's turning kind of a yucky brownish color. But for this maybe it doesn't matter. For a lot of things it would be a big problem. So again, you can use this, but it's not really the ideal way to do a burn. Alright, and here's the last shot for our part 1. Nice location portrait. Again, you've got all of this stuff out here. I know that in a location portrait the idea is to show the location. But you now have to think about this in terms of the words. Think of it this way. Is this a picture of the mountainside with the girl in it? Or is it a picture of the girl who happens to be out in location where this mountain is? Well, I'm going to guess that it's really the latter, that this is a picture of her on location. So my question is, if my main shot is here, how much of this do I need in order to let the viewer know that she's outdoors in this pretty field with flowers and the mountain in the background, and then end it? If I show any more, all of a sudden we're going to be looking at this and going, wow, what is back in here? Is there anything going on? What kind of flowers are these? Where is this? Do I see enough here to recognize where it is? The specifics are irrelevant. The specific you care about is her. So let's get in and get rid of some of this background. And while I'm doing it, I'm going to turn this into a vertical shot because her figure is so strongly vertical that the horizontal shot really fights the natural movement of that. Now, we've got the flowers, we've got the mountain. Maybe we could show a little more of the mountain, but not much. And there's no doubt now that this is our shot. Well, here's the problem with shooting it this way. All of this darkened area around here are pixels in your camera, available pixels rather, that are not being used. So if this were a 20 megapixel shot, you've used maybe 8 pixels out of it to get this shot. All of the rest of this is wasted. So all of the money that you spent to get a higher resolution camera has just been thrown away with this. So move in on your shot. Take advantage of it all. So here's a shot. It's a much nicer shot. It really shows us that this is our real subject. Now we can get in and see her face, her expression, her blowing hair. This is really a very nice shot. And then I would vignette this one a little too. So we'll do this one the right way because I think the shot deserves it. So we'll go into our multiply layer. I'm going to do the inverted mask. So the mask is black. We need a white brush. And I'm going to use a big brush. Here's the reason. This brush is a graduated brush. It's full strength only in the center. And it fades out from the center. So if I want to create a really smooth blend by using a big brush like this, I can be very subtle with this. And now we have a much more dramatic shot of our young lady. Nicely done, nicely done. But don't throw away all of those pixels just for nothing. Move in on the shot. If you have a longer lens or a zoom lens, use it. But think about where's your shot. Anything else in the image that does not enhance the main subject, you need to get rid of so that it's not confusing in there. Okay, so this is the end of part 1. We'll get this processed and ready, and then we'll tackle the next part. See you then.